Good afternoon, good evening, good day, whenever you're viewing this video. This is the CloudChartist with your weekly Ichimoku wrap for the week ending February 26th, 2016. This is the 28th Sunday afternoon that I'm making this video for you. We're going to start off with the ES. We see that the ES made some bullish progress. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, make things easier to see. We see that last week's candle remained in an uptrend as we put in a higher high and a higher low, and we did manage to test over, not only over the Tenkan-sen, which had been previous resistance for quite some time since we lost the Tenkan-sen here on this candle. We managed to test over the Tenkan-sen and test over the Kijun-sen as well. Almost made it all the way up to the cloud resistance up here at around 1973.50. But we were rejected lower than that. We put in a high of 1968.75 and then sold off and managed to close above the Tenkan-sen, which is significant, and but below the Kijun-sen. The Tenkan-sen is at 1938.75, which has been an important level of resistance many times throughout the week. If we go and look at the daily chart, we can see that to be the case. If we just put in a line at 1938.75, you see what I'm talking about. That was rejected here. We sold off, caught a bounce, came back, got rejected again here, came down, put in a bounce, got rejected here, 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 and then we finally on the last couple of days of the week managed to get over that level. And while we're looking at the daily, we can talk about that a little bit as well. So we did break out over the daily cloud and then sold back inside and closed inside the cloud. That's not at all atypical. We see that the Chikou, this red line over here representing price action, time shifted 26 periods into the past, did come up and test the Kijun-sen up here. In fact, it tested over slightly for a few moments there, and then was unable to close over the Kijun-sen. So it's currently right around the same level as the Kijun-sen here. Let's go back to the weekly. So it's important that we did close above this 1938.75 level because it shows that it's no longer necessarily resistance, but we didn't close that much over it, so that's important to take note. We could once again lose that level and then continue to be banging our heads against it. So moving forward, if we do continue to stay above the Tenkan-sen here, the Kijun-sen will continue to offer resistance at the 1956.38 level, unless, of course, it opens in a different location. It's possible that because of this bullish momentum to the upside, that the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen could be in different locations when the new candle opens. We also have the Chikou over here has resistance at the cloud, which is at 1960.50 right here. So if the Chikou, whatever the Chikou does is oftentimes what current price does. In fact, the Chikou is current price. It tracks current price exactly. It's just 26 periods in the past. So 26 weeks is what it's interacting with whatever happened 26 weeks ago. Which so the cloud is here at 1960.50. So that could offer resistance here as well when the Chikou runs into it once again. If we do manage to make it over that area, and then we do have resistance at the cloud once again, but the cloud is quite thin here, so it wouldn't be that difficult for price action to break over the cloud. And if it does break over the cloud, then there will be other levels of resistance for the Chikou. If price breaks over the cloud, that would be around 1982. Then the Chikou would have some stuff to interact with over here as well. It would be interacting with the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen here. So, and above that is the top of the cloud here, which is at 2004.69. So that will be a level of resistance as well. You can see that was prior support here and here. So if we do make it over the cloud, keep an eye on that 2004, 2005 area as well for resistance to the upside. We have quite thin, flat, twisted clouds ahead, which is not particularly bullish or bearish. It just means probably that we'll have some sideways action, but we shall see. If we do go lower, then you can see some obvious prior levels that we've already been trading around, so I'll let you worry about that, and we'll take too much time looking at that. Let's move on to crude, because the market has been tracking crude anyway. I made note of a inverse head and shoulders pattern that I saw on crude on a much shorter time frame. I think that was maybe hourly, shows it pretty nicely. Maybe even, let's see if we can still see it on the 4 hour. You can see it on the 4 hour. So I saw, you know, a decent looking neckline with a left shoulder, or and the head and the right shoulder here. Doesn't look that good on the 4 hour, but you see what I'm getting at. Maybe on the daily. Yeah. So it's not a perfect looking inverse head and shoulders, but it is a bottoming type pattern, and crude often makes sort of funky inverse head and shoulder type bottoming patterns. So I was just pointing out that that was a potential scenario for a move if we did get over the neckline, but you see that we did not manage to get over the neckline, so that may be a failed pattern, or we might have another chance to get up to the neckline, and we'll see. But I'm going to take that drawing off for now. So we won't be thinking about it at the moment. And we'll go back to the weekly, see what we got going on. So just as far as Ichimoku goes for the weekly, for crude, we see that we did manage to close over the Tenkan-sen, which is significant because we haven't closed over the Tenkan-sen in quite a long time, actually, in crude, since the last candle that closed over the Tenkan-sen was this one back in October. We've been underneath the Tenkan-sen on a closing basis that whole time. But so that's a significant bullish divergence there. The fact that we broke the downtrend and closed over the Tenkan-sen. We do have a flat Tenkan-sen and a flat Kijun-sen that suggests sideways price action and trading in range. So I do expect that if we are able to hold above the Tenkan-sen at 32.22, that we will continue to trade in a sideways range. Resistance of the Kijun-sen is all the way up at 38.49, so that would be quite a significant move to the upside if we were able to do so. We'll see. The cloud ahead is moving downward. Doesn't offer resistance until all the way up at 48, so, or thereabouts, 47. So cloud chances of the cloud being even an issue are slight at the moment. But we do see that we have lowering cloud support. So if we do move in a sideways range for a while, cloud resistance will become lower and lower. This thin area here would be an interesting area for a potential break through the cloud. That's not until beginning of June, but keep an eye on this thin area in the cloud. That price action could, if it was going to break through the cloud, this would be the most likely area for it to do so. All right, let's move on to some stock indexes. Let's look at NASDAQ. The NASDAQ was able to stay in an uptrend, put in a higher high, higher low, and was able to close inside the cloud. So the NASDAQ is now neutral in Ichimoku terms on the weekly time frame rather than bearish. It was bearish last week as it closed under the cloud, but the week before put in this really nice reversal type candle that was confirmed with a reversal to the upside, and the trend is continuing to the upside. We did make it all the way up to a high of 42.93.25, which is approximately the same level as the cloud. Not quite, just the cloud was 42.97, so very close to the cloud here where it got rejected. and it did have the Kijun Sen at 4,300 and the Tenkan Sen at 42.80. So currently the Tenkan Sen is still acting as resistance for the Nasdaq here on the weekly time frame. I expect that chances are likely that we will trade within this range unless we are able to break out and put in a close over this the cloud at 4,388, or if we are going to potentially reverse direction to the downside, then I would, in order to see a change of bias, we would have to put in a close underneath the cloud at around 41.85. Let's look at the Dow. Dow was unable to break over the cloud, but did test the very top of the cloud here with putting in a high at 16,820. The top of the cloud here is at 16,810, so actually we tested 10 ticks over the cloud and then got rejected. In fact, we got rejected by the Kijun Sen at 16,636, but we did close above the Tenkan Sen. Tenkan Sen's currently at 16,513. 513. So we can look for that to offer support for us coming up. If we hold that support, then we will continue to have resistance at the Kijun Sen at 16,596 or wherever the Kijun Sen is when the new candle opens. We could see, because of this bullish momentum to the upside, we could see the Tenkan Sen and the Kijun Sen both in locations higher than they currently are. The cloud will continue to offer resistance, but the cloud is quite thin, so that's not a lot of resistance there for it to be offering. So it wouldn't be that difficult for a price to break through and get back over the cloud. So just a reminder, in Ichimoku terms, if price action is below the cloud, it's bearish. If price action is inside the cloud, it is neutral. And if price action is above the cloud, it is bullish. Let's look at the Russell. I'm going to ignore my fibs there, although they seem to be pretty significant. But so the Russell, looking more bearish than the other two indexes, did put in a nice reversal off that hammer candle from 2 weeks ago, and or 3 weeks ago, I should say. And the uptrend still continued, but the Russell was unable to get back over the Tenkan Sen. It's still heading for that flat Tenkan Sen. See that it's been thwarted by this 1038.90 level, which was prior support and became resistance. Has been resistance here multiple times. Let's see where I drew this fib from. If you see, the fib is drawn from way back here where it offered was prior support from back in October. So these October levels are coming back into play. Now it's offering resistance over here. So it's kind of handy that I happen to have that fib there. If we do move higher, we will have resistance at the Tenkan Sen at 1048.10 and the Kijun Sen at 1072.10 above. We're really pretty far below the cloud still. So we'll just deal with those levels for now. That's about all I have to say for the Russell. Let's move on and look at some metals. Let's look at gold. Gold is still bullish, still above the weekly cloud. We put in a higher high and a higher low, but we put in a candle body closing below last week's candle body. So technically, we were in this really strong uptrend, then we put in this inside candle, and this candle is now, with the higher high and the higher low, is now, we're still in an uptrend, but it's a little bit sideways right now, obviously, you can tell. Other things that are keeping this from ripping to the upside, we have a flat cloud below, we have a flat Tenkan Sen below, and a flat Kijun Sen below. The Chikou was unable to get above the cloud and closed underneath the cloud, so the cloud is offering resistance to the Chikou, which is around the 1227 area. So in order for gold to move higher, we need to get the Chikou back into the cloud and technically out of the cloud. So Chikou has pretty high resistance at 1260.150 for next week. If we do trade lower, we can expect to find support at 1190.10, but that's quite a ways down from now. So quite a range of what could happen for gold. Gold, we notice also the cloud is still sort of trending down, which is not particularly bullish if you want to be real bullish about gold. And wherever there are flats in Ichimoku, price action is attracted. So that is why this flat is significant, this flat is significant, this flat is significant. We also note, if we want to look at the RSI, that because of this extremely fast momentum to the upside, we did get overbought on RSI, so we're just sort of coming out of that a little bit right now. So some sideways action wouldn't be unhealthy at all here for gold. Let's look at silver. Silver made some pretty crazy sells last week. Let's look at the daily for fun. Yeah, so last Friday we had this pretty crazy silver drop. I really don't know what the catalyst was for it. It was not represented in gold. In fact, if we look at gold on Friday, nothing like that, right? So much for the correlation between gold and silver. Let's go back to silver. So yeah, I don't know what that was about. Let's go back to the weekly. But regardless of what it was about, the Ichimoku charts telegraphed it nicely. Bear with me for a second. I gotta get rid of my cat. A little squirt connection there. So the 2 weeks ago, we managed to, after this bullish momentum on silver, make it into the cloud on a closing basis. So we were neutral in Ichimoku terms, and then two weeks ago we lost the cloud support and went back into bearish territory. And then last week we got even more bearish by being unable to. We opened up here and tried to trade up into the cloud, got rejected, and then sold through the Kijun Sen support and the Tenkan Sen support and closed significantly under the support. But let's go zoom out a little bit. If we want to look at the level that we did put in a close at here, we can see that it's pretty significant horizontal level. Let's see, the close was here. This might not be exact, but I'll show you what we're talking about. See this prior support here, prior support here, prior resistance here. So it's obviously a significant area that we are put in a close at. So we could see a bounce here. That's what I'm getting at. It will be important to see if we do actually trade down below this, say 1380s. That would be significant. Then we could be testing all sorts of other levels down here for silver. But for now, silver is just bearish, downtrend. The Chikou is underneath the Tenkan Sen, so the Chikou doesn't really have support. It could have support inside this candle here. That could be what's going on. But if we get down below, say 1450, then the Chikou will be under these candles and then have to deal with them offering resistance to the upside. All right, let's look at some bonds. It's a 30-year Treasury bond here. We see that we put in this huge spike back in the first week of February all the way up here to 170.20. We did have a contract change in here, by the way. I'm just going to put that out there. But I'm not going to pay attention to that for my methods. You can disagree with me if you like. That's fine. We put in, this huge spike. Then we put in this hammer candle here with a lower high but a higher low. So inside candle to this prior spike candle. And then last week we put in an inverted hammer candle, which is not particularly bullish. So despite we did put in a higher high and we did put in a lower low, so this is an outside candle, but I would say that it's most likely that we would be heading lower. We do have the flat Tenkan Sen and the flat Kijun Sen below attracting price to the downside. We did get pretty much overbought. You can see on the RSI if you look down here. So I'm looking at this important level where we did put in the low at 163.14. That's an important level to keep an eye on next week as potential reversal level, as it was prior resistance and support. You can see from these two candles. Then if we continue to sell lower below that, then looking at the open of this candle, which is 163.16, and then down here at the Tenkan Sen at 161.25, and the Kijun Sen at 161.03. It's very important to keep an eye on the Bund and crude if you're trading the 30-year Treasury bond. The Bund has really been holding up quite well. So, in fact, U.S. Treasuries have been a bit more bearish lately than the German Bund. So, let's look at the 10-year. Similar chart to the 30-year, obviously. We do have a thinner cloud below. We are still extended above the cloud, and we do have prior support resistance around here at this, let's see, 129.20 area. So that would be an important level to keep in mind. It was prior resistance for this candle here. If we sell below that, then I would expect a test of the Tenkan Sen. That's down currently at 129.075. Kijun Sen just slightly below that at 129.050. So obviously the 129 level of support is very important. If we sell below that, then we should be, chances be pretty good that we will be attracted to the flat cloud down below here. Let's look at some grains. Corn last week came up and tried to test the Kijun Sen, but didn't make it all the way up there, and then came down and put in a close below the Tenkan Sen. So a bit of volatility in the corn market, but still not a lot of progress. Still trading in this sort of choppy range below the cloud, bearish territory. So it's important, if you want to be bullish for corn, for it to get back over that 361.13 Tenkan Sen level. And if it can do that, then I expect it to trade in a range between the Tenkan Sen and the Kijun Sen. If not, it could get rejected down to retest this prior bounce area where these tweezer tails were put in from the beginning of year around 356. Let's see, that was 357. So if we do trade lower, do keep an eye on that 357 level. Let's look at soybeans. Soybeans put in a bearish candle after trading higher. Then they, just like corn, traded below the Tenkan Sen, put in a lower close, put in a close just slightly off the lows. So not looking very bullish for soybeans, but it's been a real choppy range. Quite glad not to be trading the grains at the moment myself. Let's look at wheat. Wheat put in a new low. Let's zoom out and check out. I mean, this has just been bearish. The cloud's been stair-stepping down, and price action has been stepping lower and lower for wheat. We're not yet oversold, though, because it's been sort of gradual slide down. The week before, we did come up and try to test the Tenkan Sen, and last week we came up and actually made it over the Tenkan Sen briefly, but then we did put a new low in at, let's see, 446.50. We did close pretty high off the lows, so we'll see if this close area, it's 453, can act as potential support, maybe put in another tweezer bottom. That's just an idea. No reason to believe that will happen. Let's look at oats. Oats, like wheat, put in a new low, a historic new low. In fact, if we look at the month, let's look at the monthly briefly. We haven't been in this general vicinity since like 2010. The 28 low is the 2009 low is 170.25. So we're only about 16 above that, with our last week's low coming in at 181. Not looking very bullish for oats at the moment. If we do get a bounce to the upside, then the Tenkan Sen at 204 is going to provide resistance, and then the Kijun Sen above at 217. I fully expect those two indicators to be lower when the new candle opens because of this bearish momentum to the downside. Let's look at live cattle. I see I still have my triangles that I drew on there, and interestingly we closed above this trend line, so that's significant. Potential breakout to the upside for live cattle. We did close above the Kijun-sen. In fact, we didn't even retest the Kijun-sen. We did put in a topping tail at this prior resistance level that we see was also in play in December around 134.30 thereabouts. Is that right? No, I'm sorry. That is 137.22. So keep an eye on that 137 area, see if we can get going above that. If we do continue this trend up, then we will see a potential for a bull cross, meaning the Tenkan-sen could cross back over the Kijun-sen. Let's look at lean hogs. The hogs are testing the cloud resistance here. So last week or 2 weeks ago, we came up and tested the cloud and were rejected. And then last week we did so once again. We tested the cloud, but we did close closer to the highs last week. So we could potentially expect another test of the cloud this week for lean hogs. We also note that Chikou over here is did test the Tenkan-sen and Kijun-sen confluence, which is why we put in these spikes, little spikes at that level, but then we did close underneath there, got rejected by those. So those are offering resistance as well. If we do trade lower, the Chikou will be potentially able to find support at the top of this candle, either at the wick at 69.97 or the close at 69.15. So that could offer a potential level of support. And then if we trade down lower, then we can look for the Tenkan-sen to act as support as well. But I do expect the Tenkan-sen to be higher when the new candle opens up. Let's look at the Nikkei. Nikkei has been an important chart to watch. The Nikkei and the yen have been very important for determining risk lately. The Nikkei is in an uptrend, put in a higher high and a higher low, heading towards this flat Tenkan-sen above. We do have the issue of the Chikou coming into the cloud here. It did actually test inside the cloud when we put in the high and then close under the cloud. So the cloud will continue to act as resistance for the Chikou, but the cloud is rising, so resistance is rising as well. We do have this prior level of support here at around, let's see, 16,795, 16,800, something like that. So that could offer resistance as well, but if not, then the flat Tenkan-sen at 17,000 thereabouts. And also, important to remember that the Nikkei and the yen are Japanese products, and this is a Japanese charting system, so they tend to work very well with it. Let's look at, speaking of the yen, let's look at 6J. 6J, put in this extremely strong move over the cloud, but then closed inside the cloud. Then the last week's candle, or 2 weeks ago's candle, came down and tested back inside the cloud, but put in a hammer candle above, with a close above the cloud, which was significant. Then we opened up above the cloud and tried to go higher, and then closed just right on the edge of the cloud here. So this week, if we do trade lower, the cloud is actually going to be in a lower area. It's going to be down here around 0.08735. If we are unable to hold that cloud level, I expect us to come down towards this flat Tenkan-sen down here inside the neutral cloud at 0.0861333. And I think I will take a look at the dollar and then wrap it up. The dollar was bullish last week. It did put in a close above the cloud. Let me get even closer. It did put in a close above the cloud last week but it closed right in the middle of its candle, so it did put in a big topping tail here. Then we did put in a strong move to the upside when the yen sold off and closed just slightly off the highs. This is an important area, obviously, from prior support and resistance area. So we do have the Tenkan-sen that could offer support if we do trade lower with the dollar down at 97.615. And if we do lose that area, we could see the potential for a bear cross because the Kijun-sen is coming up here towards the Tenkan-sen. So if we want to be bearish on the dollar, the potential for a bear cross is here, and we just need to see a close underneath the Tenkan-sen, and that would pretty much ensure the bear cross. And then if you're bearish, you're going to want to see the price action stay underneath that bear cross, because a bear cross is not that significant unless price action is underneath it. We do have a lower cloud in the future, offering lower and lower support for a while into the middle of April, and that's when it starts rising again. So price action often follows the shape of the cloud, although you wouldn't necessarily know that by looking at the shape of this cloud, but that's always the potential there. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for watching my video. If you're interested in learning more about Ichimoku, I do offer instruction in my chat room every day from 8 to 4. We're in there trading futures and other stuff using Ichimoku Charts live. That's a really nice community of traders. If you're interested in checking it out, you can check out my website at CloudChartist.com. You're always welcome to hit me up on Twitter at CloudChartist, or send me an email, cloudchartist@gmail.com. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have. Good luck trading this week. Stay safe, and thanks again. Oh, and if you like this video and you want to give me a thumbs up on YouTube, I believe that eventually it will help with my potential bandwidth, getting higher quality video streaming from YouTube. So I appreciate that. And if you don't like the video, feel free to tell me. And thanks again, and have a good night.